Of course, that's what happens when you need to make something tailored for adults. I've talked about in the past how when I was younger, my parents arranged their work schedule so that my dad was home in the morning and then he would trade places with my mom in the afternoon. What I forgot to mention was during summer vacations, my brother, sister, and I, never did camp, like summer camp, because we were both, we were all able to have an adult at home at all times. The closest we got was that pond that I've talked about in the past. And based on how I tried weaseling out of it if I could, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have liked summer camp. But that brings me to today's article from the Wall Street Journal. Adults are going to sleepaway camp to make friends. It seems to actually work. Once again, we have things that were originally intended for kids being offered to adults in some capacity. I am very curious to see how they tailor this to adults the same way that Chuck's Arcade added booze and such to tailor that to adults. Not that that's something I would want as an adult, but it's a thing they tend to add. Just add alcohol and now, hey, it's for adults. Before I get into how this might be part of the quote unquote loneliness epidemic or how adults are now paying for community and third places. Well, I guess we always pay for third places because part of the definition is, quote, low cost of entry, if not free. I'm not sure. My attempt at finding a third place with the AMC at the Boston Common would count as that because it was still a bit pricey, but we'll talk about that later. Before I get into all that, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoy it. Comment what you think along the way, whether you would consider trying one of these adult sleepaway camps. I mean, personally, I wouldn't because I've got other things to do here. But I digress. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations. And feel free to keep the conversation going at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. Alright, let's read the article. Here we have Camp Social in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains. And it's your typical American suburban park. Or at least I'm guessing it's suburban. If it were urban like the Boston Common, you'd be able to see the tall buildings and such. Oh, I forgot to acknowledge the author is Tara Weiss. Jocelyn Benson made some of her closest friendships at sleepaway camp while hiking, climbing the ropes course, and cheering for teammates during Color War. She lived in a bunk with other campers, chatted late into the night, and made plans to see them once camp ended. The other things she did mingled with fellow campers who drank wine and cocktails. I called it and stayed up till 1:30 a.m. Benson was, after all, 29. Sleepaway camp isn't just for kids anymore. Yeah, so are literally everything else that was originally considered just for kids, like arcades, animated movies, well, movies that are generally made for kids, but they have an appeal for adults, like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies for me, as a fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog video games growing up. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie, I loved it because it was a really good adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2. But yeah, other than that, the whole kidult market is a thing now where they sell the toys to the adults, and that's basically their majority now instead of it being a niche thing while they generally make their money off of selling to the kids. Well, technically to the parents for the kids. You know what I mean. It was 2 summers ago that Benson, now 31, started attending Camp Social, a 3-day overnight camp for women in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains. She plans to return in September. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you don't make tons of friends unless you're doing something that bonds you, she said. Now, Benson has a girls' group she goes on trips with, and one of Benson's closest friends at Camp Social became her roommate for a year in her Provo, Utah home. Perhaps it was the war paint they smeared under their eyes to display their color war team spirit, or cheering each other on during a relay that connected them so tightly. As she put it, we got to be silly together. Yeah, doing something more than just playing video games with each other over the internet or just sitting in front of screens is probably a lot more interesting an activity to do with other people. I mean, yeah, other than those things is more interesting. Like, for example, if I had gone alone to Adult Night, the Museum of Science, thankfully my friend was able to come, but in the alternate timeline where I went alone, I probably would have ended up talking to other people, kind of like when we were trying to do the lift the giant bag of sand activity at the Science at the Park exhibit. For those of you who haven't been to the Museum of Science Boston, there's a section in the blue wing of the exhibit halls called Science in the Park. Coincidentally, it was closed both times I went in 2019 and 2024. But this time, in 2025, it was finally open. It was a lot different than it was back in 2015 and earlier. But one of the things they had was this try to lift this, I think it was 500 pounds of sand. And it was the closest I got to, I guess, doing something social with strangers. Okay, I think I need to be clear here that my friend did not hold me back from meeting new people. But I will say I probably would have talked to them a little longer if I didn't have my friend with me. That's, I think, the best way to put it. Anyway, the point is, none of it involved screens, and we were all there for a specific adult activity that came out wrong. A specific activity targeted for adults. Anyway, let's get back to the article. Overnight camp has long been a way for kids to disconnect, play, and make the kind of friends that stick with you for life. To Camp Social's founder, Liv Schreiber, it seemed only natural that, in a world where more people are connecting via social media and work can be remote, grown-ups would be looking for the same experience. I built Camp Social for the adult friendship gap, said Schreiber, who was 28, lives in New York, and founded the camp in 2023. I created what I wished existed. We're expected to figure out friendships without a blueprint. Let this go to show, if you wish something existed, try to make it if you can. Like to put it together. What did she say? Yeah, she wished that something like Camp Social existed, so she made it. She didn't just wait around for someone else to do that. I guess the moral of the story is to get up and actually do something instead of just sitting around waiting for it to happen. Or as I saw in other male loneliness epidemic videos, you gotta make you gotta take the steps to get people together if no one's inviting people out. You can't just wait around for someone to invite you. That's why I invited friends to Adult Night at the Museum of Science. Now, I framed it in a way that I said, this is what I am doing. This is my itinerary. You are welcome to join me for XYZ as you can, or you just see fit. That's something that Travis Wu brought up before he deleted all his other videos and then just became a crypto bro. Yeah, rather than plan around people, you plan around your activity, and then you let your friends know about that activity, and you let them know that they're welcome to join you. It's a little more complicated for movie going, unfortunately, with reserved seating because you have to be on the same page about it. I hope that if and when I sign up for AMC A-lister, no, it's just A-list, I can still at least order my friends' tickets with that ahead of time and then have them join me at the Boston Common before and after, Have a bit more of an adventure. But I digress. Getting back to the article, Camp Social joins a number of grown-up sleepaway camps such as Club Getaway. Camp? Camp? Oh, that's such a creative name. And Camp No Counselors that have seen a surge in new campers in recent years. Demand was enough that Camp Social, which hosts 400 female campers per session, added a second in September. Camp No Counselors, which has locations in Pennsylvania and California, is expanding to Texas in April. Wow, so this is growing. Camp directors say that in the past, campers would come with large friend groups, but these days, new campers are arriving solo. Schreiber said 92% of attendees at Camp Social come alone. Sounds like the complete inverse of what Adult Night at the museum would have been like if I'd ended up having to go alone. I would have been the only loner. My friend and I actually noted that basically everyone else was in groups. There's no real mingling. I guess maybe the cash bar at the Red Wing might have counted as that, except I wouldn't have mingled among people who are drinking. you know my feelings on drinking, and, well, let's just say if they were there to have a drink of alcohol, then that immediately rules them out for me. Nothing personal, I just don't want that kind of behavior around me, and my friends I have are cool enough to not do it when they're around me or when I organize something, though, like I've said in the past, if they organize it, I have no problem with that. I'm not happy about drinking that goes on, but I'm not going to give them a hard time because it's their thing, their rules, and if I don't like it, I have the option to just not go. However, I would like to see my friends, and I will simply not berate them about it in the moment. Just leave it at that and then move on. But yeah, before we continue with the article, I just want to say that this might be a good idea for if you're an adult who's living at home. It might be a fun way to get away from home for a bit if you feel crowded living with your parents. Well, for me personally, this doesn't really work out because there's drinking involved. Not that I think they would particularly force you to drink if you signed up for it, but refer to what I said earlier about how the cash bar at the adult night at the Museum of Science and how mingling there would have been completely pointless for me unless I could track down the one person who was having a soda instead of a alcoholic beverage. Getting back to the article, anyone that has worked at camp or grown up in the camp world understands that there is a powerful people connection that forms at camp, said Liam MacLeod, a longtime camp professional and marketing director at Camp No Counselors. It's camp magic, and it's hard to replicate in the regular world. Having never gone to a sleepaway camp of any kind, I cannot vouch for this. I can, however, say it is technically physically possible to find friends outside of a camp situation, but I would argue that it seems that there's, again, an increased likelihood of it being like that because there's actually more physical activities rather than, again, just staring at screens. As much as I enjoy video games, I do also acknowledge that I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. All right, getting back to the article. Schreiber agrees. After graduating from the University of Wisconsin in 2018, she moved to Manhattan but felt isolated. She took trips to the Hamptons and Martha's Vineyard, but found herself longing for deeper friendships. Yeah, I suspect that in a lot of these places, most people around there are like people in stores and restaurants, according to DBDR. They're just there to go in, get their stuff, and then get out. Yeah, that's why the dating coaches have it wrong when it comes to approaching women at the grocery store. Look, they're not in a headspace for meeting people. I mean, you might be in a headspace for meeting people, but odds are most people, male or female, are not in a headspace to meet someone in that moment. I mean, it's a nice thought that just going about your daily life, there is a place that you can go. That's why I don't think grocery stores count as a third place. I'm not sure. Yeah, I would say movie theaters shouldn't count as that in terms of like social things, though it is a way for me to. It does give me something more to do at the Boston Common beyond just walk around the park indefinitely. You know what? Maybe I should look at the Boston Common as my third place with the only cost for entry for me is the $10 unlimited commuter rail T pass. But we'll talk about that later. In 2023, she rented an existing camp in the Poconos and used social media, including followers from a meetup group she founded in 2021 called Hot and Social, to get the word out. At Camp Social, creating chemistry is everything. Campers are divided by age, which range from 20s to 60s, into bunks of 8 to 10. Wow, people older than my parents go to these things. Well, the older you are, the more likely you are to have had friends of yours pass away or drift away for whatever reason. It happens. That's just more likely to happen as time passes. Each is staffed with a trained counselor who serves as a camp concierge and a bonding facilitator. They are even tasked with coming up with a bunk cheer. During the day, campers create their own schedules from a buffet of traditional activities including boating, archery, ropes course, bracelet making, waterfront, tie-dye, and tennis. But there are adult embellishments too. Paint and sip and a mixology class are on the schedule. Of course, that's what happens when you need to make something tailored for adults. At least adults who are okay with drinking or don't have my zealous opposition to the very concept of alcohol. This is actually one of the things that I struggle with is finding places that third places that are alcohol free because apparently it can't be tailored for adults or even adult friendly or anything like that unless they serve alcohol. Now, I can find people who aren't drinking alcohol, like Mississippi. Unfortunately, that is extremely unlikely. That was like 1 in 14 million that happened. But let's get back to the article before I get on my soapbox, as my friend put it, or more than I already did. It costs $883.51 for 2 nights and 3 days. The camp has been profitable since the first summer, in part because the cost of operations are offset by brand partnerships, Schreiber said. Oh, that's a funny way to say advertisement. This summer, Dunkin' is a sponsor and 2 branded trucks will drive around camp, offering caffeine. Other sponsors include LaCroix Beverages, Essie and Jones Road. Last summer, Amazon Prime was a sponsor and screened the movie My Old Ass and provided branded towels and popcorn holders. Man, did they get to see My Old Ass before its wide release? Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't have liked the lighting conditions because even after the sun sets, outdoor lighting is just outdoor screens with the projector and such are just not going to be as good as an indoor theater, which is why Christopher Nolan didn't want Tenet to play at drive-ins back in 2020. True story. Unlike all-inclusive vacations that don't facilitate bonding among guests, and wellness retreats that focus on one or two activities such as yoga or meditation, sleepaway camp, with its combination of nature and trying activities with new friends, fosters connection, participants say. I played games I haven't played in 15 plus years, said Maddie Martino, 29, director of an indoor sports facility in Chicago, who signed up for Camp Social after seeing a video on Instagram. And I guess this is the paint and sip class, kind of like the Muse paint bar. I mean, comment if you would go to one of these sleepaway camps as an adult, whether you're late 20s like me or older, or if you would go to one of these to escape living at home for a weekend. Personally, I would consider an alcohol-free version. However, I'm a little hesitant because I might not be able to fit in my Saturday movie, which is the only media that I care about fitting in on Saturday. I can now go days without playing video games. Like, I can skip an occasional Saturday of checking for Jolly Red and not Jolly Red. I can skip a KK Slider concert on a Saturday, especially if I know in advance there's going to be an in-game event that causes it to be pushed to Sunday. I can bring myself to skip playing my primary video game, listening to my primary audiobook, or watching episodes of my primary TV show for days now. But the Saturday movie is the one thing that I want to keep going, which is why it's a whole thing to rewrite my charter and then make the Boston Common the place I go and use AMC as the place to get my Saturday movie fix, and then use A-List so that I don't have to pay full price. Okay, let's wrap up the article here. Upon arriving at camp, everyone gathered around the flagpole for a rundown of scheduling and cabin assignments. That night, there was a cookout, icebreakers, including charades and a dance party. For the next 3 days, she traversed the high ropes course, hiked, kayaked, and paddleboarded in the lake. I left feeling lighter and more worry-free. It reminded me to step away from the hustle and bustle of work life, Martino said. Camp allows us to tap into time where we're brave enough to try new things that we don't always give ourselves permission for in real life, said Jamie Gulati, a 43-year-old office manager from Dover, New Hampshire, who attends Camp, a week-long overnight camp for LGBTQ people in Maine. Part of the magic is the people who return year after year. Camp has a 75% return rate among campers, and nearly 40% have attended for more than 5 years, says director Carrie Reffel. Gulati said that unlike vacation, after which you become Facebook friends with someone you met and then never see again, unless it's the movie Speak No Evil, The friendships made at Camp are lasting. She even met her girlfriend during her first summer. It's like a big old family reunion every summer, but even that would get boring, said Gulati, who returns to Camp later this week. There's new people every year that revive and bring extra energy. I'm trying to think of a Wet Hot American Summer joke. That's the movie about that. Actually, I kind of want to watch that now because this has me thinking about it. But yeah, this whole concept, the Matt Walshes and Tim Pools of the world to be like, people aren't having enough kids. This is why they're tailoring their business strategy to target to adults. I mean, that could be part of it. The article didn't mention whether any of the people who went to these camps had families or if they were all single people. I mean, I am genuinely curious how I kind of want. I wonder if there are any in my area, but you know what? It's a good way to make new friends by the looks of it. I would argue that it's better than just staying inside perpetually, and it's better to actually do something. And it's good to meet people you're more likely to have something in common with in the fact that you are at this sleepaway camp. It's not like what is it? Maybe you don't have all the exact same interests, like what Tim Pool says is the key to successful relationships because he and his wife both grew up in Chicago. They had the same taste in music and similar values compared to, let's say, a woman from LA and a man from New York. They would have wildly varying interests and values. Well, maybe they'd have similar political views because LA and New York are both strong leftist outholds. I think is the best way to put it. But on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here for the video because, again, I personally am a little hesitant to do one of these. Not just because I happen to have, not just because I never did any of this as a kid and don't really feel the need to make up for lost time, if you will. I also happen to have things I like to have to get done on Saturday that I'm not sure how I would react if I missed a Saturday movie after over 13 years now. But anyway, give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Comment what you think about all this, whether you would personally try out one of these camps as a late 20s adult, whether you're living at home or if you are moved out. Don't forget to subscribe for cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations. Let's keep the conversation going at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.